Hey, what's up guys? Guardian here, coming to you guys with a deck profile today, going over my brand new deck, my Solrairon deck. So wasn't planning on building this deck when it initially came out, but a year later, it's gotten some support from DivineZ 2, and it's actually pretty damn good. And it's really helped the deck out in terms of its plays. In fact, I can't even imagine how this deck played before the support, to be fair, because the new cards are just so nutty. You gotta see them, all right? So let's get stuck in. So for the ride line, of course, we're sticking with the Solrairon ride line. Now, I have seen alternative builds where some of them might use the generic Alden ride line, the one where it's like you check the top 5 for a grade 1, then a grade 2, call them to rear, and then if you don't call, you can call the respected ride line unit from your soul. I did try those cards, but the awkward thing with it is that the grade 1, the only grade 1 that you care about calling is the it's the one that draws you cards. Like, I'm getting used to the names still of these things. Decoys. Yeah, she's like the only like relevant one that you want in the early game, since the other two only work once you're at the grade 3 Solrairon, so kind of a bit awkward there. And the grade 2 is like fine, but you know, sometimes you don't hit, and then yeah, I just find it a bit awkward. But you can resolve the skills quite easily because you've got a variance of different grades in the deck to pull those skills off. But I found myself liking the Solrairon ride line more, just because with the grade 1, it is a bit of an RNG factor. Basically, you have to call the top of your deck, whether it's a normal unit or a trigger unit, and then if you're correct, you get it added to hand. So obviously, typically, you want to call normal unit to then get a 3+1. But the benefit is that if you get it wrong and it is a trigger, then it just stays on top of the deck, or you can put it into the soul. But yeah, typically we're just going to keep it on top of the deck, and then you've got a trigger at least. So you get some sort of benefit, I guess, but you would like to get the +1 if possible. But it is a bit RNG there. Now, of course, you do have less triggers than normal units in your deck, so it should be a higher chance for the +1 to happen. Now, the grade 2 is actually pretty cool. Basically, when you ride on top of him, you get to call both the grade 2 and the grade 1 from your soul, which is really, really good for the turn 3 setup, because the grade 2's rearguard skill is that at the end of the battle that he attacks, he gets the ability to retire himself, and then you can countercharge 1. But it's only active as long as your Solrairon has revealed a card by its ability, basically, a normal unit specifically. And you'll see that as a trait with some of the other units, is that you specifically have to reveal a normal unit with Solrairon to get their abilities active, basically. So, yeah. But we do have ways to set it up, obviously. So with the grade 1, when she's called to rear, you get to basically draw a card. Well, you reveal a normal unit first, and then you get to draw a card, and then put that the normal unit that you revealed on top of the deck. So it basically sets up the deck for the Solrairon to actually work, essentially. And of course, we have the energy generator. So yeah, with that, we'll go into Solrairon, because naturally we are playing Persona Rides in here. So we have 3 extra copies of Solrairon. Really, really cool. So with him, basically, when you enter the battle phase, you Soul Blast 1, and then you announce whether the top card of your deck's either a normal unit or a trigger unit. And then if you're correct, Solrairon gains the red text of all of your units get 5 hit power continuously for the turn. So the cool thing is that when you're calling new units during the battle phase, they will also benefit from that power increase. So it's kind of like an extra, you know, power increase to like the Persona Ride for the turn kind of thing. But it's like a mini Persona Ride. So yeah. But the cool thing with this is that we can set the deck up rather easily with some of the units in our deck, but that extra power gain is just going to go all over your field, and then, you know, even the boosters will be at a certain power level to where you can start doing like small pokes initially in the battle phase, and then later when you're calling more units, those can then benefit from the boosters and then get over defensive triggers, basically. So that's really cool. Then the second skill that Solrairon has is basically what enables the multi-attack for the deck. So when it attacks, you counterblast 1, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, you get to call one of them, and then put the other on top or bottom, basically. Now, this is actually pretty cool with some of the other units, in that it lines up potential like combo plays and like multi-attack enablers to give you like your 4th or your 5th attack even. So yeah. So yeah, of course we have the 3 Persona rides, and then of course with them we're playing the 1 Gradle to go with it, just so we can access the Persona ride. I feel like in a multi-attack deck like this, with 5 attacks, you really want to make sure you're securing that Persona ride for the power increase. So yeah. Alright, so next for the grade 3s, we have just one more. We have 4 copies of Dependable Pierce Dragon. This guy's really cool. So basically when it's placed, you get to, do the skill of reveal a normal unit from your hand, and then you can draw a card and then put that card on top of the deck. So it's another way for you to, stack the top of the deck ready for Solrairon. And then also with the multiple stacking skills that we have, we could theoretically stack the deck in a certain way to enable other plays. But we'll get to that very soon. But the second skill of this is that when it attacks, as long as your Solrairon has, revealed a normal unit from its ability, you can basically get the red tech skill on this guy, of when he attacks, you can give him 5,000 power, and then at the end of the battle, he goes into the soul. And this is great, because obviously with the 5k from Solrairon and the 5k from himself, he's going to be 23. So already he gets over a defensive trigger in the early stages of your attacks, without even taking into mind, like, other power increases like Persona rides and stuff like that. So yeah, and the fact that it just generates soul as well is good, because we will need the soul for Solrairon Soul Blast, and maybe like one other card in the deck, I think. So yeah, soul is pretty forgiving in the deck. It's not too bad in terms of soul blasting, but we just want to make sure we're recovering that soul so that the soul blast for Solrairon is a constant thing, basically. So yeah. So 4 copies of that, and do take note that this is a grade 3 rear guard, because that will matter later on. Alright, so next we have the grade 2s. We have 4 copies of one of my favorite cards, Wisdom Claw Dragon. So Wisdom Claw is pretty sick. So when he's called from the deck, he gets 5k power. So with Solraion's 5k as well, he'll naturally be 20,000, as long as you call it through the deck, of course. But the second skill is that when it's placed on rear, as long as you've got a Solrairon Vanguard, you can look at the top card of your deck and then put it to the top or bottom. That's just like the natural part of the skill. And then the second part, where the cost comes in, you can counterblast 1, look at the top card of your deck, and you may call that card to open rear. And then if you call the card, if you don't call the card, you can put it to the soul instead. So yeah, pretty much with this, it's enabling your 5th attack. That's essentially the goal. But obviously the awkward thing is that you need to make sure that the unit on top of the deck that you're calling is preferably something that isn't a trigger. Now, do note that you can call a trigger from this. So if you are very unfortunate, you can actually call a trigger just to enable you to get that 5th attack. But you do have ways around it, because like I said, when he's called, you do get this check the top of the deck beforehand to see if you want to call something that's there. But if not, you could put that to the bottom and maybe chance the counter blast to then call the next card, and then whatever it is, that's what you call. But like I said, we do have other outlets in the deck of stacking to where we can like stack the top 2 cards of the deck, so that this is always going to guarantee to call something that we want to actually call. So yeah, you kind of have to play around it a little bit, but it's really fun when it goes off. And yeah, the fact that he gets the power increase as well just helps out when it comes to getting around defensive and such. So yeah, 4 copies of Wisdom Claw. Really, really cool. And I love this guy's artwork as well. He just looks really cool. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Garmor in a weird way. He's got that sort of like art aesthetic around Garmor. But anyway, with that aside, we have the next grade 2, which, honestly, this is probably the most broken piece of support I've seen for a deck in DivineZ. So this guy is just a rare. It's Lectures. So basically with this, at the end of the battle that it attacked, if a normal unit was revealed by your Vanguard with Solrairon the card name, you compare the cost of putting this unit into the soul, countercharge 1. Pretty good already. But then, obviously, it's going into the soul, so that's soul charge. And then, if this unit was placed on the deck this turn, you may draw a card. Now, very important interaction here. It says you may draw a card. Now, that can sometimes come up depending on how you've done your stack. Because there has been times where this will like randomly show its face when I haven't planned for it. And then the fact that it says may draw means that you can opt out of the draw for the sake of like keeping the next card there. if you have no sort of workaround to sort of like, you know, get this unit off the rear guard when you're attacking, basically. So, yeah. But the fact that this thing is like, it's a soul charge, a counter charge, and it draws you cards as well. Like, it's absolutely nuts. I don't understand how this didn't get like at least a double R treatment, but we do actually have a double R in terms of support in the grade ones, but we'll get there in a second. But yeah, what a nutty rare like for a deck like this. This is perfect, and the fact that it removes itself from the rear guard, it like coincides the dependable dragon with like, you know, poke, go into soul, and then call two more things. Like it's just perfect for the deck. It's really, really good. All right. So with that, we now have the last two grade twos here. I decided to go with. Hang on, I'll do this in a slightly different order. So I decided to put two copies of Sacrosanct Dragon in here. Now, I haven't actually tried putting the Energy Blast grade 2 Biscotti because I don't own them. Of course, people that are aware of the case issues I've been having recently, you'll know why. But even without it, I feel like this deck is still fine without them. It can still run pretty well. And Sacrosanct synergizes really well in here because, like I said, we don't have a lot of things that Soul Blast, just the Vanguard, and we have a good amount of ways to Soul Charge. So with this, when it's placed from your when it's placed by a card ability, it gets 5,000 power, and then if it was placed from the deck, you can Soul Blast one, draw a card, and it gets boost that turn as well. Now, the boost side of it doesn't really matter too much, but it's the fact that you get to draw a card. Like, if you just see this, call it. It's another way of like rebuilding your hand whilst also extending with your multi-attacks, which is absolutely fantastic. So this guy's been working pretty well in the deck, and I only really need two of it because if you do see it in the early game, you can just discard it, and you have a way to like recycle it from the drop zone to then put it on top of the deck again. So don't worry too much about that. And then the last grade 2 I'm playing is two extra copies of the Ride Line Storgron. So this guy I just think is really good because the fact that he just retires himself, gets him off the rearguard circle, gives you the counter charge, he refreshes your resources, and he opens circles for you to then call stuff to without taking too much of a neg. So at least with this, you're getting the counter charge resource back before he goes. But yeah, like, obviously the other two are better, like the Dependable and the Lectures, the fact that they just go into Soul are a little bit better. But I still respect this card because it's a counter charger. So at least with this, you can be a bit more flexible with your resources and counterblast a bit more often. So yeah, and it's actually one of the main reasons to why I actually play him. Like, I stick with the Solrairon Ride Line because I like having access to that counter charge early game so that I can use it pretty well with like the draw grade one, which we'll go to in a second. So that's it for the grade 2s. So for the grade 1s, we have to go over this busted ass thing. So yeah, we are playing 4 copies of Efol. So Efol is pretty good. So when it's placed on rear, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Solrairon in the card name, you can counterblast 1, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 2 grade 3 or less unit cards from among them, call it to rear, and then if you call 2, you have to put one card. You have to reveal a card from your hand, and then if that card's a normal unit, you stack it at the top of the deck, and if not, you put it into your drop zone. So yeah, with this basically, it's like counterblast 1, look at top 5, call one thing, and then you basically get a +1. But if you do call 2, you basically get an opportunity to stack the top of your deck, which is of course important for the way the deck plays. But this also gives you another way to do multi-attack in the deck outside of Wisdom Claw, because you can just call this to any circle, doesn't matter if it's like open or not, and then just use his skill, call something else to the other circle, and then boom, you've got 5 attacks. And then he's also just good in general for board building. Like, if you just need to build a board again, this thing calls you 2 things from the top 5, and then, you know, you can stack something else and then prepare the Solrairon ability. It's absolutely insane. So, yeah, of course we're playing 4 copies of this. It's just absolutely nutty for the deck, and such a great support card for the strategy. So, yeah. So that is it for him. So next we have 3 copies of DivineZ. This is the draw card that the deck got from set 12. Actually pretty good, to be fair. And one thing I like doing with this is that I like calling it on my grade 2 turn to make the grade 2 attack a bit stronger, so that they can't just, like, you know, no pass it. But then it also sets up your turn 3 when you call the grade 2 and the grade 1 out from your soul. Because since you're calling something through a skill, you can then counterblast with this to then draw a card. And then it also gets a counterblast eaten, so that you can then countercharge it immediately with the grade 2 skill. From the ride line, because that was something that I found a lot of the time, was that I wanted to put this counterblast to use, this countercharge to use in some way before getting rid of it, and the only way I could really do it was like through EFOL and also this. So with that, at least this gives us an option to like call this in the early game for a bit more aggro, but then also draw into more pieces on our turn 3 when we call the grade 2 and grade 1 out from soul. But yeah, this in general also is nice because if we call this units from Solraion's ability, this will also provide 5k power. So you do have to time it of like when you want to do it. But in the later stages of the game, you're pretty much going to be doing this with Solrairon anyway, so that's fine. So yeah, 3 copies of her. And then last grade 1 is actually pretty cool. But actually, they're all pretty cool, to be honest. So we're playing 3 copies of, what's this guy called? Harvestine? Harvestine. I'm pretty sure that's right. But yeah, this guy is pretty cool in that basically when he's placed, if you've got a grade 3 or greater Vanguard for Solrairon the card name, you can choose up to 1 grade 2 or less normal unit without Sentinel from your drop, and then put it to the top of your deck or into your soul. So this thing gives you soul charge if you need it, which is nice, I guess, but this just stacks the top of your deck with anything that you've used. So if you have a Wisdom Claw, if you have an E-Fall in your drop, you can stack that at the top now, and then you know it's a normal unit, and then you also know what you're going to get from when you call it through Solraion's ability. So, yeah. I was playing this guy at 2 initially, but then I bumped it to 3, and I don't regret it. Like, I feel like with E-Fall, because this is what I was playing at 4 of originally, I feel like with this 3 is about right, because as long as you got one of these on the board, you can kind of just, put the counterblast into that when you need to, and then get the draw. But with this sets your multi-attack a lot easier and sets your plays up really well. So yeah, I think 3 copies of this is about right, I think. So that's it for the grade 1s, and then, well, actually, no, tell a lie, 1 more grade 1, we have the perfect cards. And yeah, although I don't have set 1 cards, I did decide to order myself some of the set 1 PG, because I felt like this looked a bit better for Solrairon in terms of the aesthetic. So yeah, 3 regular PG and the 1 Elementaria, pretty straightforward. Alright, so for triggers, we have the Keter Sanctuary Over trigger. Oh my god, it's returned. I can't believe it. It's being used again. I haven't played the Keter OT in such a long time, pretty much since the Blue OT came out from like last year's festival. But this deck can actually utilize it pretty well, because since we're like going through the deck and filtering it quite often, sometimes we can just set this up to the point where like it's just really easy to pull off. And then also, like I said, remember, we do have a grade 3 Vanguard in this deck, so we can actually benefit from twin driving with the Dependable Dragon, which is really, really cool. So yeah, and also I went for this Keter OT instead of Amata Noah. This one just looks really, really cool, I think, and I think it fits the theme of Solrairon quite well. So yeah, so 1 copy of the Keter OT, and then next we are playing. I decided to just go for 8 crits because I feel like with this deck you kind of just need to pressure as much as you can. A lot of modern decks these days are just so high aggro that we kind of just need to keep up with them. And 8 crits what I decided to go with. And I decided to stick with the vanilla one specifically because, like I said, there is that small interaction with Wisdom Claw where sometimes you might end up calling a trigger, and then having that 5k base power actually matters a lot more than the 4k from the effect triggers. And also, if I'm honest, the effect triggers never really came up. Like, there wasn't really like a dire situation to where I really needed to use them. You could argue that they do give you soul, but like I said, not a lot of things use soul in this deck. Like, as long as you got the 1 soul for Solrairon on your next turn, and then like Sacrosanct Dragon for the draw, that's about it. So yeah, it's not that important, I don't think. So I decided to just go for the vanilla triggers, basically. But after that, we do have 3 copies of the draw trigger, just so we can see pieces a bit more. You could swap these out for fronts if you wanted to, since we do draw a little bit in this deck, but with this deck, I find it quite a bit piece orientated sometimes, so I kind of want to stick to the draw triggers with this. And yeah, last unit, of course, is the heal trigger, which I got the brand new sort of like full art version of the trial deck heal, which I think looks really nice with the deck. So yeah, that is pretty much it for the Solrairon deck. I am pretty happy with it overall. It's been really, really fun, honestly. Like, if you ask any of my friends, they'll know that I've been playing this deck a lot recently, and yeah, it's actually kind of sad because I picked this deck up rather recently, and it's the one deck that I keep constantly going back to play because it's just so enjoyable to pilot. And when you start doing your plays and multi attacks, it's just really satisfying to pull those plays off. So yeah. But yeah, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile. It's something new for the channel, so obviously it might take a bit longer to go through this one, but it is what it is. And yeah, that's it. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. This is Guardian, signing out.